Members, I'd like to thank everyone that is here in attendance today and all of the guests, but in particular, I would like to thank all of the families. It is because of your tremendous support and sacrifice that all of us can dedicate ourselves to this work, and we thank you all. Members, we stand at the threshold of a new legislative session, and with that, endless opportunities. Entrusted in us is the authority and the confidence of over 20 million Floridians. And with that comes great expectations. Expectations that we would do what we said we would do when we first knocked on their doors and asked for their vote. When we filled their mailboxes with our mail, and when we crowded their airwaves with our commercials. That we would be who we said we would be. Together, we are the custodians of a truly blessed state. Florida is geographically and environmentally gifted. She is all at once the South, and she is the gateway to the Americas. She is the first stop for families like mine seeking to participate in the American miracle, and the last stop for those settling in to a hard-earned retirement. And thanks to the work of past leaders, she is also the most fiscally sound and freest state in the Union. The great clouds had formed above us now. We have a great financial and human crisis looming. I'm speaking, of course, of the healthcare industrial complex, a terribly dysfunctional healthcare system that is bankrupting the state and many of the individuals living in this state. It is time for us to bring real reform. We are now spending almost as much on healthcare as we are spending on all other things combined. And it is not enough. Still, hundreds of thousands of Floridians are without health care, and many more are struggling to pay for their insurance and their medications. The healthcare industrial complex receives money from the federal government, state monies, local monies, and private monies, and it is still not enough. The same is true of the pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies that are gouging Floridians every day, charging them sometimes 10 times what the rest of the world is paying for the same medications, and often more. Members, Floridians have entrusted us and they have empowered us to remedy these crises, and we must do our work. That is why this year we will pass comprehensive healthcare reform. No simple solution, no individual thing will change this. In order to really turn the tide, we must have comprehensive healthcare reform. We must look at the areas where government has gotten in the way. We must engage the consumer so that market forces can apply. And we must embrace new technologies. That is why we must get rid of policies like the Certificate of Need, which have only served to create local and regional monopolies. Monopolies that have allowed hospitals to buy doctors' offices and diagnostic centers all around them, all while enjoying the protection of a special territory. And of course, the prices have risen. They've put emergency rooms in all of our communities and encouraged us to use them as primary care while billing us at emergency room rates. And our prices have risen. The same is true with the pharmaceutical companies. And that is why we must allow for real innovation. Technologies like the ones that we saw here, telemedicine. There is no reason that we as a state should stand in the way of these new and disruptive technologies. These are the things that are going to truly bring about the paradigm shift, and we must be supportive of them. We must also stop the obstruction of allowing people to serve to the full extent of their training. We have tens of thousands of nurse practitioners, highly trained, highly educated. We must allow them to serve to the full extent of their training. I'm reminded of decades ago when we were told that paramedics should simply just put injured people in the back of an ambulance and rush them to a hospital. Well, it took real reformers and it took visionaries to prove that differently. Today, highly trained paramedics save lives on the sides of roads and in people's homes every day. We must also engage the consumer. A third-party payer system where the consumer does not know what they're paying, what is being done, and has no real choice until they get home and they see out-of-network costs that oftentimes cripple them financially, is not a functioning system. We must allow consumers to purchase the health care that they and their family need, the health care that best suits their needs. We must create an environment where there is transparency so that they can know what the outcomes of the procedures that they're going to undertake at certain facilities are. And we must have reliable and binding estimates so that they know what they are going to pay. We must also free our agencies and individual Floridians so that they may buy their medications at the same prices that the rest of the world is buying them at. It is unconscionable that we would be subsidizing all of the world's medications while our own residents struggle to pay for them. We must make this change. We have been empowered to do these things. We have the authority to do them. The only thing that we must now bring to the table is the courage to do them. And I challenge you all to join me in bringing about real reform to our healthcare space. Another area of concern, although admittedly not the five-alarm fire that is healthcare, is our higher ed system. Our higher ed system is considered one of the best in the nation, and rightfully so. And we should congratulate the thousands of men and women that work hard every day to make that a reality. But we should also understand that throughout the years, we've continued pumping more and more monies into that system. And those excessive dollars have created excesses. It is true now that our university systems are taking longer to graduate students. It is true that oftentimes they have grown with the desire to be larger rather than to be better. That their high-paid administrations have grown faster than their faculty has, and they have had an endless appetite for new construction. And so that is why we must seek reforms, not sweeping reforms like we are seeking in the healthcare space, but a course correction that is important and necessary. This is also true in our college system, where much of the same excesses have occurred, but there we have the additional concern that these two-year institutions have started a trend to become four-year institutions. This creates redundancy and increases prices and takes the focus away from what it should really be, which is the development of workforce and technical educations. And so that is why this year we will finish the work of performance funding. This will ensure that the priorities of these institutions are perfectly in line with the priorities of the students that attend them. And we will look at everything that is on our PICO list, a list that is now ballooned up to $750 million, all at the same time that a recent study was released showing that in our university system, space utilization is below 40%. Everything that is on that list now and that will go on that list in the future will come with a rigorous justification for its existence. And it will come with a plan, a sustainable plan, of how it will provide for its own maintenance and replacement in the future. And in our college system, we will once again focus on developing workforce and technical expertise that is desperately needed in our communities. We can do all of these things. And if we do, this simple course correction will set us back on a path to accountability and sustainability. Let's preserve everything that is right with our higher ed system by removing everything that is wrong. And speaking of reform, this year marks a truly special year. It was 20 years ago today that Governor Jeb Bush and the 1999 legislature were faced with a major crisis of their own. Our K-12 system was in terrible disrepair. Only half of those attending high school were graduating, and our children were reading and doing math at well below the national average. They knew that the road ahead would be a difficult one, and the 20 years that have followed have certainly been that. Tremendous political fights and struggles, but throughout all of those years, we've continued the path forward to empowering parents and allowing the money to follow the children. And today, 20 years on, what we can say is that our graduation rates in high school are now at 86%, and our children's reading and math is 5th and 7th respectively in the country. This anniversary is special for many reasons. Obviously, because of the fact that today more children have an opportunity than ever. But it also shows us that if we have the courage and we use the authority that has been given to us, we can truly bring about change. There's still over 100,000 children and their parents waiting for an opportunity. We have to make sure that we follow in the footsteps of those reformers and continue a path to greater choice in education. And what ties this all together is our one constitutional obligation, and that is to pass a balanced budget. We will do that, and we will do that while still investing in our children and in our schools. We will do that by raising the per-student allocation. We will do it by raising teacher pay. We will do it by helping our brothers and sisters in the Panhandle still recovering from a devastating hurricane. And we will do it by supporting the governor and funding his priority as he leads in the protection of our natural resources. Members, a new session and a new opportunity for us to be who we said we would be. I look very much forward to working with all of you. Leader McGee, I look forward to working with you. I look forward to working with President Galvano and our partners in the Senate, and with our governor and our cabinet members. Look forward to working with all of you. Let us begin. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.